Hello everyone. So let's see how we can optimize table rendering in React. What I mean by that, uh, let's just take this simple example where I'm rendering a table with three columns, okay? And as you can see, the table is getting rendered for the first time. Let's see I interact with one of the rows, okay? I'm increasing age of this person. As you can see, the table is getting re-rendered. Whole table is getting re-rendered. This is a really bad approach, okay? Only this row should get re-rendered, not the whole table, right? So why is this happening? Let's see. So first of all, let's understand the code. Okay, so I'm using ZooStan, okay, where I'm storing uh, the data in the store. So ZooStan is a state management library. In real life scenario, the data will come from API, but still you will use some state management libraries to store that data because you have to reference the data in different components, right? So you may be using Redux, which is a famous library, right? But I'm using ZooStan because of its simplicity, uh, and it is easy to set up, right? So uh, yeah, so I have just hard coded the data here for now, but consider this data is getting from an API, right? So as you can see, the data is stored here, and I'm referencing the data in our app.jsx. Here I'm taking the data and I'm rendering the data here, rows.map. Okay, so whenever I click h plus plus, okay, it calls this update row function, which is updating this rows list, right? So that is why this is getting updated and the whole rows is getting re-rendered. Whole data is getting re-rendered. So how can we optimize this, right? So first of all, what we can do, let's separate out this table row to a different component. Okay, let me just create a new row component. I'll create a new row dot. Okay, so here I will pass the row from the parent, not rows. Row. Just take this here. Okay, okay. So what I did, I just converted this. I just wrote a new component to render that row. Okay, so let's see on the UI if it's working. Yeah, it's working. Okay, still the table is getting re-rendered because we haven't done any optimization yet. Okay, so what is the next step? So as I said, we are updating the whole rows list. This thing we have to avoid, right? So what we can do, as you can see, the IDs will never change, right? So let me just create a different list where I will just store the IDs. Okay, and I'll also create a one map where I will map the ID with that record, with that row. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll reference these IDs in the parent table component. Row IDs. Okay, we'll take row IDs, and what we'll do, we will iterate over row ID and we will pass the row ID here. So keys ID, okay, and we will pass the ID here. Okay, and since now it's row ID instead of ID, okay, we will use the table stores map that we just created, right? We just created a map here. I'll just open this on the side. Okay, so we created this row map. So we'll use that row map to fetch that record. Okay, now we have fetched that record here. Okay, okay, okay. So the age is not getting updated because we have to update this update row function, right? We have changed the implementation. So let's just comment this out. I will write one more function. Okay, update row optimized. where I will take ID updated. Okay. And what I will do, I will update this row map instead of this rows. Okay. So let me just do that. I have the code here already. Okay. As you can see, so I'm just updating the row with the whatever new state of that row is, right? And I'm setting that to row map. Okay. Now the row map is getting updated, not the rows. And since we are referencing only one of the record in that row map, right? So it will not render the whole table. So I will just use that update row optimized here. Okay, let's see what happens on the UI. As you can see, the age is increasing, but table is not getting re-rendered. Why? Because what we are doing, we reference the IDs in the parent component. IDs will never change, and we took inside the row component, we only took the data of that row, right? And we are interacting only with that rows data, not the other data, right? So whenever we click on this H++, only this is getting updated. This row is getting updated. It is not interfering with other rows, right? Even if I console.log here, okay, okay, okay. So first of all, table render, the row one, row two is rendered. See, only row is one is rendering. Okay, if I change anything in the first row, if I change anything in the second row is getting re-rendered. Okay, so in this way we can optimize table rendering. So why is this important, right? So here it will not matter because the data is very less. So but consider a real life scenario where there are thousands of records, and in every record something is getting updated every second, every 5 seconds, right? Multiple columns can get updated, right? Then if this table gets re-rendered every time some row gets updated, then the table will get really slow. Even scroll will not work. The scroll will take time because since the table is getting re-rendered, it will reset everything, right? So there we can use this approach, the simple optimization approach, where you will just manage each record in different component, right? So why I created a separate row component? Because we are going to manage state of every record separately in its own component and not in the parent component. So in this way, you can optimize table.